Just by way of introduction, migration, the movement of people from one place to another for purposes of settling on a relatively permanent basis, it's something that started right from time immemorial. And migration has a effect on the population of the place of origin and on the population of the receiving country or region. In South Africa has a few migration waves. The first migration wave started with the arrival of the Dutch in 1652, and later on the British settlers in 1820, and later on the mass movements of people, to the Transvaal gold fields as a result of the discovery of gold. In the post-apartheid South Africa, migration is still happening as a result of an uneven socio-economic development patterns in the country, where people have to move from regions that are less industrialized to regions that are well industrialized in search for jobs. Globally, there are about 272 million migrants all over the world as at 2019, as reported by the United Nations Department for Economic and Social Affairs. Now, why are we looking at migration? Because migration is one of the demographic issues, and demographic issues can influence population and economic growth. So, as the Eastern Cape government pushes with its development agenda, this issue needs to be considered. The aim of this study was to understand how migration patterns affect the labor market dynamics in the Eastern Cape. The specific objectives are to actually examine the current migration patterns, analyze the effect of migration on the labor market dynamics, and also look at the existing government policies and how they affect the labor market in the Eastern Cape. And one would wonder, why do people migrate over the years? Theories of migration have been propounded in order to explain why people will leave their comfort zone to places unknown to start a new life. Now, the new classical migration theory says individuals want to move where they can have highest returns on their human capital. The segmented labor market theory says people move as a result of the structural pull. When vacancies opportunity exists within the different market segments, people with skill in those segments would be attracted to move to supply skills in those segments and earn a return. The world systems theory says when people are displaced due to globalization and the expansion of markets, this kind of present opportunity kind of disrupts places that were not really exposed to globalization. And when that happens, people become aware of opportunities and then they want to move. And there's the social capital theory says that migration actually depends on networks. The earlier migrants share information with potential migrants at home, and that gives the motivation for the next wave of migrants to follow. These are the reasons for migration, the theories behind migration. And as long as there is disparities between one nation, one region, and the other, migration would continue. Now in South Africa, in 2011, we have the top 10 countries nationals who were present in South Africa, and also we have the top 10 nationals who were present in South Africa in 2016. But we can see, if we look at the two period, we can see that actually migration is decreasing. Documented migrants are reducing. If you look at, for example, the Zim population has reduced by about 29.5%, while the UK population in South Africa has reduced by about 70%. Now, in terms of international migration into the Eastern Cape, so migrants also come into the Eastern Cape, but as we see here, Eastern Cape is one of the least preferred destinations for migrants, and we can see that the trend from 2006 to 2011 and 2016 to the projected figure for 2016 to 2021. Now, in terms of migration patterns in the Eastern Cape, as we can see here, during the period 2006 to 2011, 2011 to 2016, and even the projected migration pattern in the Eastern Cape from 2016 to 2021, we can say that Eastern Cape will consistently have has been having negative net migration, and will have in the last projection of 2016 to 2021. In terms of level of education, we can see that most people that migrated from the Eastern Cape, they are either those who have not completed their secondary education, or those who have completed their secondary education, and those with who have completed their tertiary studies. Okay, so those who have only completed primary education, less than primary, and all of that do not migrate, and those could would constitute the large stock of working age population that stay behind, and which could explain the high levels of unemployment. Now, those that have not completed their secondary education, they prefer to go to the Western Cape. As at 2017, the percentage of those set of people was 50.8%, while those with tertiary qualification, they prefer to go to Gauteng at a percentage of 17.3 in 2017. Now, why do migrants move? Mainly to work, to look for paid work, to live with a relative, to attend school, or they move as a result of the family moving to other regions. Now, what about migration within the Eastern Cape? There's also migration within the Eastern Cape. Like we can see here, Buffalo City Metro, Matatiele, Yandeni, Senku, and Umzubumvu. Sorry, they are the net recipients of internal migrants now, and this can be explained. For example, Buffalo City is the seat of the Eastern Cape government, and therefore it's not surprising that it is the net receiver of internal migrants. Now, within the education sector, the numbers we have here shows migration out of the country, migration of teachers out of the country, as a result of many factors, you see. And when teachers leave the basic education sector, that could create shortages of teachers in that sector, and the sector could struggle. Although the figure here does not is not specific to the Eastern Cape, but this is the national, the total number of teachers in the basic education sector who have migrated out of the country. This would also be teachers who are from the Eastern Cape. So this phenomenon also affects the basic education sector in the Eastern Cape. Actually, to the extent that in 2011, the Eastern Cape had to recruit about 900 foreign teachers, about 975 foreign teachers to help teach mathematics and science in the education sector. Now, in terms of the higher education sector, we have in migration of foreign professionals into that sector. In 2000, the percentage of foreign nationals in the higher education sector was 10.5. In 2016, 13.2, and in 2017, 11.2. So this shows that in the higher education sector, the sector is in migration of foreign personnel, professionals, foreign lecturers and researchers into the sector. Now, of the four universities in the Eastern Cape, the four universities do have foreign lecturers and researchers within their employ, but Fort Hare seems to have the largest number of foreign researchers, international staff working within their institution. Now, in the health sector, we have a migrant out of the country, and we also have international migrants into the country. For example, in 2010, South African medical graduates who left the country was about 14,933. In 2014, you have the number 12,691. Even though it's increasing, shows a net immigration of 15%, minus 15%, but there's still an outgoing of medical personnel. During the same period, international medical graduates who came in 2010 was 4,330, and those who came came in 2014 was 4,992, an increase of about 15.3% over that period. But you see, the number of international medical graduates that came in is not enough to cover for the shortfall of those who left the country. So this caused a shortage, of medical personnel sector. Now, within the Eastern Cape government, these are the number of doctors that were employed and the resignations and the total that are still in service. Sorry, the resignations significantly reduced the number of doctors in the employ, and we have no statistics to show whether there have been equal employment to fill to replace these resignations. Had that not been done, this causes a shortage of personnel in the health sector. And what are the causes of this resignation? Poor salaries, poor working conditions, inadequate medical infrastructure, overwork due to staff shortage, limited advancement, lack of personal security, because some medical officers have been reportedly raped and stabbed in hospitals, and political uncertainties. Now, what are the views on migration and the labor market? There's some view which says that international migration reduces opportunity for locals in the local job market. But Borges 1990 says no, there's no such impact. At least it's not yet been proven with empirical evidence. CAD 2009 also says that even if such effect exists, they are very small and negligible, because the primary labor market is a reserve for the locals, and only the best skilled migrant access it. And the rank and file migrant always find or create their own employment in the secondary sector. Some of them who are employed are often exploited. So we have these regulatory instruments that have been used to regulate movement of migration into the country. A number of them here, which have been used to curtail movement into the country. And then we have internationalization policy that encourages research collaboration among universities in the country and abroad. In fact, through these internationalization policies, foreign researchers and international staff get employed in the universities. Then we have the white paper on employment, on new employment, on employment for the public service. This white paper says that only South Africans should be employed on a permanent basis. Foreign nationals could be employed on a temporary basis. So this policy then protects the public sector labor market and creates space for the citizens. So we have migration case studies. Studies in the Eastern Cape that was done by Maketa Kosi et al. Says migration did not serve the purpose of a livelihood strategy. Another one in Pumalanga that was done says migration really actually helped a lot, as migrants were able to send goods home. And the one that was done in Kandla says migration saved no effect. People were not able to send money home and actually contracted serious sicknesses in the city. And the one that was done in the UK, an Indian, says migration actually helped India with poverty alleviation. Now, we have seen a lot of the migrations within the region and outside of the region, and we have seen how the health sector and the education sector have been disturbed by migration and have suffered shortages. Now, the SADC protocols, one of the regulatory instruments, actually allow movement of goods and services. In that case, that particular policy actually permits a bit of migration into the country. So what are the policy recommendations? Government must develop the rural areas, the rural economy, especially in terms of agriculture and the mining sector. So to keep people in the rural areas and stop people from migrating and also create jobs, the government should industrialize and diversify the Eastern Cape economy to keep their skilled graduates to stay and develop the region, and also create jobs for different people with different skills. The government should offer investment incentives to the private sector in order to attract new investment and help create jobs and keep people in the province. And the government must also invest in education up to the tertiary level in order to increase the stock of educated citizens who then would have better options with regard to labor market participation. Thank you very much.